Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Ukraine now an epicenter of unbearable heartache, UN chief says on visit to meet Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Kyiv. The head of the United Nations says Ukraine has become an epicenter of unbearable heartache and pain. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made the comment during a visit to Kyiv, just before the first Russian strike on the Ukrainian capital since Moscow's forces retreated from the city's outskirts weeks ago. Russia pounded targets all over Ukraine on Thursday, including the attack on Kyiv that struck a residential high-rise and another building and wounded 10 people, including at least one who lost a leg, according to Ukraine's emergency services. The bombardment came barely an hour after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy held a news conference with Mr Guterres, who toured some of the destruction in and around Kyiv and condemned the attacks on civilians. Explosions were reported across the country, in Polonne in the west, Chernihiv near the border with Belarus, and Fastiv, a large railway hub southwest of the capital. The mayor of Odesa, in southern Ukraine, said rockets were intercepted by air defenses. Ukrainian authorities also reported intense Russian fire in the Donbas, the eastern industrial heartland that the Kremlin says is its main objective, and near Kharkiv, a northeastern city outside the Donbas that is seen as key to the offensive. In the ruined southern port city of Mariupol, Ukrainian fighters holed up in the steel plant that represents the last pocket of resistance, said concentrated bombing overnight killed and wounded more people. And authorities warned that a lack of safe drinking water inside the city could lead to outbreaks of deadly diseases such as cholera and dysentery. In Zaporizhzhia, a crucial way station for tens of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing Mariupol, an 11-year-old boy was among at least 3 people wounded in a rocket attack that authorities said was the first to hit a residential area in the southern city since the war began. Vadym Vodostoyev, the boy's father, said, "It just takes 1 second and you're left with nothing." Mr Guterres surveyed the destruction in small towns outside the capital that saw some of the worst horrors of the first onslaught of the war. He condemned the atrocities committed in towns like Bucha, where evidence of mass killings of civilians was found after Russia withdrew in early April in the face of unexpectedly stiff resistance. Wherever there is a war, the highest price is paid by civilians, the UN chief said. Space to play or pause, M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Battle for Donbas still raging. Kyiv has been relatively unscathed in recent weeks since Moscow refocused its efforts on the Donbas. Getting a full picture of the unfolding battle in the east has been difficult because airstrikes and artillery barrages have made it extremely dangerous for reporters to move around. Several journalists have been killed in the war, now in its 3rd month. Both Ukraine and the Moscow-backed rebels fighting in the east have introduced tight restrictions on reporting from the combat zone. Western officials say the Kremlin's apparent goal is to take the Donbas by encircling and crushing Ukrainian forces from the north, south and east. But so far, Russia's troops and their allied separatist forces appear to have made only minor gains, taking several small towns as they try to advance in relatively small groups against staunch Ukrainian resistance. Russian military units were mauled in the abortive bid to storm Kyiv and had to regroup and refit. Some analysts say the delay in launching a full-fledged offensive may reflect a decision by Russian President Vladimir Putin to wait until his forces are ready for a decisive battle, instead of rushing in and risking another failure that could shake his rule amid worsening economic conditions at home because of Western sanctions. Many observers suspect Mr Putin wants to be able to claim a big victory in the east by Victory Day, on May 9. One of the proudest holidays on the Russian calendar, marking the defeat of Nazi Germany during World War II. As Russia presses its offensive, civilians again bear the brunt. It is not just scary. It is when your stomach contracts from pain, said Kharkiv resident Tatiana Pirogova. When they shoot during the day, it is still okay, but when the evening comes, I can't describe how scary it is. Ukraine's military said Russian troops were subjecting several places in the Donbas to intense fire, and that over the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces had repelled 6 attacks in the region. 4 civilians were killed in heavy shelling of residential areas in the Luhansk region of the Donbas, according to the regional governor. Read more. Columns of smoke could be seen rising at different points across the Donetsk region of the Donbas, and artillery and sirens were heard on and off. Many of the Russian troops who